Alright, I'm going to try and go over how I wired the Aeromotive a1000 fuel pump and fuel system. First, basically going to go over what relay I used, which is just a basic 5-prong weather pack. I have that guy tucked in right up under here. Now, the way the wiring works, you have 85, when it focus, 85 and 86 is what's going to control your relay. So what I did was cut the factory harness, what would feed the fuel pump, from the relay. Mine is a brown with purple tracer, and that's what I actually use to control the relay, to turn it on, this guy. So once you have power feeding your relay, I have ground going straight over to ground, so it is still switched power from the key. All this does is turn the relay on. Now power wise, I have a fused wire going in for, I believe that was 30. Which one you look in there? Bad lighting. 30 and 87 are going to be your high current wires. So 30 comes in hot, and then 87 will go out and feed the fuel pump. That is a fused wire coming from 30. 86 and 85 control the relay on and off. So it's a little hard to say because I have everything done already, but what I did was I have my power and ground wires, even though they're all looped up. I took the factory plug that goes through the body, and I actually pushed the wires through them. And this little yellow wire is for your fuel sending unit. I'll get into that in a minute. But basically what you do is you have power and ground going through. You can go straight to ground. They're kind of all wrapped up in the looms, but you can always ground everything because nothing's going to come on until you turn the key once you go through the relay under the seat, or some are actually in the fender. The relay comes on as long as your rollover switch is set. It will send power right to here, which would have went through this grommet to feed your fuel pump. This now just feeds a relay up in there. So your relay is just controlling your fuel pump on and off, but it's still controlled by the switch. Getting down. Now the way I wired the fuel pump is I still wanted to be able to quick disconnect. So if I ever got to drop the tank, these are the wires, power and ground, for the pump itself. So I can always drop my tank and there's nothing still connected. And this little guy, like I said, it's your one wire to feed the fuel gauge. Now I put an aftermarket one in because mine was sloshing around a lot and it wasn't very accurate, so I just put an aftermarket one in and problem solved. A little hard to show you on top of the tank because it's all in. I'm just not going to drop it down. But basically, you have power and ground, which is what these two wires are. Power and ground go to the top of your hat. And as far as the fuel sending unit, there is, I don't want to say power, but there's a ground, and then this runs up to your gauge. All I did was I jumped the ground to the ground on the fuel pump, and that way I have less wiring. And then your ground wire comes back up through here, back up through the body, and then straight to ground. Everything is switched through that relay. Everything is still controlled through the ignition key. Alright, I'm going to try and show you a multimeter and how to test for power. So of these wires, you got to see which one goes hot when you cycle the key. And I already know it's this one, but just want to show you. And forgive me for the shakiness. This is a one-man band here. The other thing is, this is that one wire that feeds my fuel gauge. I've run all the way up along the inside here, and then just straight up the A-pillar, and then it feeds it right back here. So, fuel gauge. I'll show you that it does work.
You gotta snag Hefty's Ultra Strong Trash Bag.
Alright, trying to explain the wiring for on top of the fuel pump. I just made a printout because, like I said, the tank's already in the car. I didn't want to drop it. But this here is the positive to the pump. That powers the pump. This is your negative. So what you're going to do, going back to that relay, your pin 87 is going to feed that. And this is going to go straight back to ground. Either one of these two is for your fuel sending unit. Now you just got to make sure when you put it in, you know which one is for the sending and which one is for ground. So you can make a short little jumper wire for your ground, so you don't have to run two wires back for ground, because this one's already going back to the battery or a good chassis ground. And this will be for your fuel level sending unit. Whether you have factory or aftermarket, you just got to look at your wiring diagram to find out what is your fuel level sending unit wire. As far as the relays go, like I was explaining, you have switched power. So this is where you're taking your power from the factory harness. This would feed the fuel pump. That's where you cut the wire, and that wire will feed pin 85 on your relay. Pin 86 will go to chassis ground, or your battery if you have it in the back, depending on where you have your relay and your battery. Pin 86 is ground. Back to the hot. You're going to wire straight from your battery. You're going to do a circuit breaker or a fuse, and that will feed pin 30. And once you go to the other side, pin 87, that's what's going to feed your fuel pump. All controlled from switched power. So hopefully this is making sense. You cut your positive wire that would normally feed your fuel pump. You cut that. That will now feed the coil on your relay. That's what's going to turn your relay on and off. You will have power coming directly from the battery to actually go to the fuel pump. So switched power is 85, 86 is ground. You are basically wired hot, but it's not on until that switch comes on. And the other thing you got to watch for is just make sure all your grounds are right. In a 5-prong relay, you're going to see pin 85, 86, 30, 87, and an 87A. Don't worry about 87A. You don't need that in this setup. You only need 30 and 87. That's your hot circuit for high current. I'm going to add a few pictures in here for the relays and the links from where I got them in Amazon. And also, when you're doing wiring, you can do loom covers and all that stuff. It just makes things look cleaner. And I do like adding the extra terminals so you can disconnect like you would at factory. So hopefully this makes sense. If not, let me know what part didn't make sense and I will try to make something else to explain it better.